Hello and welcome to our program, Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering church around the world. Today we're going to be considering the situation of Christians in the Middle East. Christianity in the Middle East is at a crossroads. Christians are leaving, and 95% are not returning. This trend, according to some, is irreversible. To tell us more about the situation of Christians in the Middle East, the challenges they face, it is my privilege to be speaking today with Father Samir Khalil Samir, a professor of Islamic studies at the University of Saint-Joseph in Beirut and an expert in interreligious dialogue in Rome. Welcome, Father, and thank you for being with us on our program.
Thank you, Mark, for this invitation, and thank you for everyone who is following us.
Father, I want to just give a little bit of an understanding of the situation of Christians in the Middle East. What kind of numbers are we talking about? And what would be the different experiences that Christians are undergoing in different countries in the Middle East?
It's difficult to be exact on the numbers, but I would say around 16 million. The greatest part is in Egypt, around 8 to 10 millions. The Patriarch says much more, and the government says much less. Then we have in Lebanon the greatest proportion of Christians. Even if it's a small number, it's around 2 millions. Then we have in Syria, Jordan, Palestine, Iraq. This is the area. That means if we speak of native Christians, because we have a great part of Christians outside of Egypt is in Arabia, in fact. But these are Filipinos, from Sri Lanka, from
foreign
Indian
workers coming in.
Foreign workers, not native. But these are also important, and they are suffering a lot for the situation of these countries. So in Egypt, the situation is now hard, but there is no persecution.
We would say discrimination.
Discrimination. We have also area with war now in Iraq, and since over 6 years in Palestine. And these two situations are very hard. And in Palestine, people have no more hope, so they will leave the country if they can. And we find the same, more or less, in Iraq. They are leaving from a part of Iraq to the Kurdish part of it.
In the north.
In the north. But how long it will remain, we don't know. And they don't know.
I want to, let's leave the question of war a little bit to the side for the moment, but let's say, how would we grade, if you will, what would we be talking about when we're speaking about discrimination to outright persecution?
Yeah, war is a bad, the worst situation. Discrimination in Egypt is the second level.
For example?
For example, first, you are the whole day and the whole year, you are invaded by an Islamic propaganda, starting at 5 in the morning with microphone, with a preaching, with the adhan, which oft contains also a message. The whole day, 5 times a day, you have on radio, television, you could hear the whole day your neighbor putting at the highest level the Quran, and you cannot react. You You cannot say, please, I want to work, I want to sleep. He answered, but this is God's word. You will have on television, even films. In the school, the boys and the girls, when they go to school, they start the day with also Islamic teaching. They are all in the court outside, and they have the so-called Tabur al-Sabah, where you have also a propaganda. And then during the day, it changes from a teacher to a teacher. You are the whole day taken by this. But in the job, when you are looking for a job in any, not a private thing, but in the public job, they will ask you your name. Absolutely normal. But through the name, we ask in Egypt the three names. Your name, your father's name, your grandfather's name. This is the system. If in the three names there is no Muhammad, that means you are a Christian.
And also, in fact, on the identity cards, religion is stated.
Exactly. They will not ask the identity card, just your name. Huh? But then you know that you will be classified, and it could be that they refuse. Things like that, you feel everywhere that you are treated differently. The atmosphere is Islamizing the society. Everything, if we are in Ramadan in this month, then the whole system changed. The hours are not the same. The buses are not working from 5 in the afternoon until 8. The life is depending from the religion, which is depending from the sun, which is... You are totally depending. And this create... you feel you don't count for yourself. It's the religion counts, and not any religion but this one. But these are simple things. You find discrimination in the university. You cannot be gynecologist. You cannot teach Arabic, because they say Arabic is based on the Quran. How can you teach Quran if you are not a Muslim?
And a gynecologist, obviously, because you would be looking at Muslim women as a Christian, and that would be considered.
Or if a girl is, a Christian girl is going without a veil, the critiques will be so strong that at the end they prefer to be like the others. The family will receive reactions and saying, you are leaving your girl going like that, and so on. There is a pressure. It could be, it depends. In a great city, it's not so important. In a small one or in a village, you feel immediately you are designated.
And can we say this is a mirror reflected across many of the countries of the Middle East?
No, not so much. Obviously, in the Arabic Peninsula, in Arabia, this is reflected and more. But I'm speaking of these countries where Christians were there before the coming of Islam: Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine. In this area where native Christians are and were always there, Egypt is the worst. On the other side, you will find Lebanon, which is not a Muslim country, is an Arab country. It's the only Arab country which is not Muslim, but which is a religious one, where Christians and Muslims are equal. That means we recognize that religion is an essential part of the society and of the system of the state, but equally. So that you have in the parliament 64 Christians, 64 Muslims. Christians from different denominations, Muslim from 3 or more denominations.
So this, in fact, would be the model of what the ideal would be in terms of living together. Right. I would like to come back to
and in between,
yes?
You have countries like Syria, once also Iraq, which pretend to be secular. These two, because of the party which was the Ba'ath. And in Syria, it's still. That means they know that you are Christians or Muslim or Shia or Alawi, but you are free. And they don't change the politics because of that. The president is certainly a Muslim, but this is not agreed. The system is more secular.
Although there is no freedom of religion, there's freedom to worship.
Yeah, it's not so bad. A Muslim could convert. It's not easy because of the family, because of the social atmosphere, but not because there is a law in the constitution. That's a difference. In Egypt, you could be punished because they say the basis of the constitution is the Sharia, number 2 of the constitution. The Sharia does not allow you to convert unless you will be killed. So they put you in prison, they make pressure, and so on. And you have the same also an acceptable situation in Jordan, not because of secularism, but because the king and this kingdom is an open-minded kingdom, especially with Christians. They say, we want Christians to remain, we need them, and we not only we accept them, we estimate, we welcome them, and we know that they are. And the Christians there, a lot of them being Latin, but they are Arabs from tribes, Arab tribes. So they cannot say, you are Western. They speak, when you hear them, they speak like Bedouins.
They are from the roots of the country.
Yeah, and for instance, the bishop, the Toal, the patriarch of Jerusalem, and the bishop of Algiers, both belongs to 2 Arab tribes, Jordanian tribes. So this helps also. Otherwise, in Saudi Arabia, you cannot do anything.
Yeah.
You
Saudi
cannot
Arabia
even pray.
Saudi Arabia is almost a situation apart, and I would like to come back to the question of Saudi Arabia because it's a very special topic.
Right.
But I want to come back to the question now of the emigration of Christians as a consequence of this horizon of discrimination to outright persecution. What kind of numbers are we talking about Christians leaving the Middle East?
This is difficult to say. We have to take country by country. What is sure is that the immigration is growing. From year to year, the proportion of Christians is going down everywhere. I just heard a few hours ago that the bishop of Tyre in Lebanon, where there is no discrimination, he said, when I was a child in the 50s, Tyre had 10,000 inhabitants, 50-50, 5,000 Christians, 5,000 Muslims. Today, they are 80,000 with only 3,000 Christians.
But here we must say then that economics is playing as much because as you say, Lebanon is not under discrimination.
There is no discrimination. This I wanted to underline. It's not always, it's not first because of religious reasons. My family immigrated to the States and to Canada. They are still living, my brothers, there. But nobody constrained them to immigrate simply because you have the feeling it's no more becoming our country. The atmosphere is changing. It's a psychological thing. Then you feel there is no freedom as we had before. And Christians are more used to freedom than Muslims. They don't support it. So for cultural reasons, political reasons, social reasons, they will say, okay, I have the possibility to emigrate, I emigrate. or because they have already the family having emigrated in the 19th century or in the beginning of the 20th, or because they speak fluently. At home we spoke fluently French and a little bit English. So the adaptation, the enculturation in the States was not so difficult, and so on. In other countries, the reason could be religious.
What you're saying is actually extremely pessimistic. The trend is growing. Is it irreversible?
If we leave it naturally, it's irreversible. Because this situation will not change in 20 years. Democracy will not come suddenly from heaven. You need to build a generation. And this is an important element. Freedom, this Islamic movement, which tries to Islamize the society, will grow and will not stop in short time. So it will grow, and if it comes to a certain point, we have seen that in Turkey, how the proportion of Christians in the beginning of the 20th century was over 20% to 24%. The proportion today is 0.2%. So 100 times less as a proportion as for a century ago. Because when you reach a certain point, 1% or 2%, there is a movement.
It feeds on itself.
Yes, yes. That's why it's very important to stop it now. And maybe to propose to others to come back. It's difficult.
It's impossible to. I mean, in a certain way, at the same time as we're seeing this natural, if you will, tendency to leave the country, it's being further provoked by the reality of violence, by the war in Iraq, by the situation in Palestine, which is provoking a further radicalization among Muslims and consequently a further pressure on Christians.
Yeah, but I give an example to show that it could be stopped. The example of Lebanon. I remember that the Hezbollah 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, when it started, it was very clear. They wanted an Islamic society based on the model of Iran. With they even said, we are more dependent from Iran than from Lebanon. The great figure at that time for the Shia in Lebanon was Imam Shamsuddin, who died 3 years ago. And Shamsuddin, in his autobiography he dictated the last week in his life, said, I was convinced that an Islamic society was the ideal. But now, after 10 to 15 years, I must confess that the society as it is now in Lebanon is better, because Christians bring a contribution, another approach to the living together. And Hezbollah, for other reasons, said the same. They don't want an Islamic society. So here is the point. Is it possible to stop this trend in the Arab world and to show to the Muslims, we are for you a chance to move to a more open society. If you want, we work together.
But that's the question. Do they want?
Do they want?
There is within the Muslim society a new word, a new term that has come out, which is the term Islamist.
Yeah.
What is the difference between a Muslim and an Islamist? And how does this play into this, what we were just talking about?
Now, this word was unknown 20 years ago. In Arabic, we distinguish very clearly between Muslim, that means Muslim, and Islami. The word Islami is a neologism because the reality is new. Islami, plural Islamiyun, means those who have a project of Islamizing the society. It's also connected with Salafism. Salaf being the ancestors. We want to go back to the ancestors. That means to the early Islam. Early Islam, nobody knows how it was, what they were, but we project. So there is even an external model of this for the Islamiyun, for men and women. They say, yeah, the Prophet has certainly a beard.
So they all wear a beard.
And the more the beard is not
trimmed,
the better it is, the more Islamic it is in their vision. They didn't have trousers and
so the long robe.
The long robe, the white long robe. And they even, you recognize them by a kind of, for the teeth. They have a root from a small tree that we know only the name, miswak, they say. Because they say the Prophet was using this to clean his, certainly he didn't have the Japanese toothpick at that time, but he used what he could find. But now you recognize them, it's a long, I have seen that.
And for women?
And for women, it's the veil, and you have different types. In Lebanon, where you have all kinds of Muslims, you can recognize, if you have some practice, if she is a Shia or a Sunnah, depending from this group or that group. In fact, it's a political sign to mark, to say, I belong to this group. As in Lebanon, if you are Hezbollah, you have yellow. If you are from Hariri, it's blue. So you are not wearing because you have chosen to be for political reasons. And that's why I say also to Europe and to the West that when you hear, yes, everyone is free, it's true. But it's a political sign, not a religious sign. Even if both political and religious are mixed in the subconscious of many Muslims.
But even in the religious field, the Muslim is not free to worship.
The question is, the vision, the ideal vision for these Islamiyun, the Islamists, is to say, we respect people, certainly, they say, but we push everyone to be a good Muslim. A good Muslim must pray 5 times a day. So if you are working at the time of the prayer, you have to be punished so that you learn how to be a good Muslim. And you have a police coming and closing the shop, or if you are eating during the Ramadan, you are punished, you are put in prison and beaten so that you learn to be a good Muslim. It's for your good that I do it. But they cannot understand freedom, that I am free to do something which you consider bad. But in itself, it's not bad. It's neutral. Here we have 2 visions of the society. The ideal society for them is given by God. We have to learn the inner freedom. And here again, I think we Christian, we have no merit. We have more, this is more in our tradition. Whether we learn that from the gospel or we learn that from our Western friends in Christians, but the fact is that for us, this is an essential point.
Father, we've run out of time, but we're going to pick up again next week, and we're going to be talking about the presence of Christians in the Middle East and what is the answer of Europe and the United States to this question of radicalization of Islam in the Middle East. Thank you for having been with us this week.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for everybody because you put up with me, and I hope we will meet next week.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today in our program Where God Weeps. And we're going to pick up again with Father Samir Khalil Samir next week, talking about the radicalization of Islam in the Middle East and the response of Western Europe and the United States to this question. Take care and see you next week.